Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Tennis Weekly with Joel, Kim, and Chris. On today's Tour Catch Up,
Serena secures singles Wimbledon wildcard as Vondrousova is banned.
Cerundolo and Tiafoe claim biggest titles of their career.
And Jack Draper makes a winning return in Eastbourne with coach Andy Murray.
Kim, today is the 22nd of June, and we are here to catch up on the week in tennis at Tennis Weekly HQ. On today's episode, we are counting down to Wimbledon, 1 week to go, and there has been huge breaking news over the last couple of days. Serena Williams has secured a singles wildcard. I thought, Kim, that was going to be the big news, but the big news actually is today because Marketa Vondrousova, former Wimbledon champion, has been handed a 4-year suspension for refusing a doping test. We'll be getting into both those stories in this episode, talking about Vondrousova in the second half. Jack Draper returning to the court once again with Andy Murray. A victory today in Eastbourne. We'll be talking about that dynamic and relationship as they spoke to press pre-event. Cerundolo and Tiafoe picking up the biggest titles of their careers in Queens and Halle. And we've also got Wimbledon qualifying action underway as well. Kim, you have been messaging me all day about all of the Brits I have forgotten about for the last 50 odd weeks of the year. You were talking to me earlier about Oliver Tarvett, Jack Pennington
Yes.
Jones. So yeah, we've got lots of tennis to talk about, and something I find quite funny, Kim, is the fact that, well, in Berlin there has been a torrential rainstorm that has meant actually the action. We had a Monday final in the doubles, but in the UK it is scorching this week. It is going to be like near 40 degrees across, I think, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. The wet bulb temperature
It's
gauge.
back.
It's
The
back.
wet bulb is back.
It's come back with a vengeance.
Yeah, I think this heat wave is going to be particularly nasty because of the wet bulb. It's going to feel more humid, more oppressive.
We're
So
just
anyone
not built
who
for it either, are we, in the UK?
I know anyone at Eastbourne, Wimbledon qualies, like be careful because there is a red weather warning from Wednesday 9 a.m. Which I was just trying to think, is this the first red weather warning I feel like we've ever had in London in my lifetime? I'm not sure, but it's going to be like awful. So I hope everyone stays safe. I mean, I wonder if they're going to reach the critical point where they have to stop
Everyone
playing.
everyone is going to need to take their own personal fan. I know I keep banging on about all of the
Air conditioning units.
air instruments I have in my flat. I've got personal air fans. I've got the aircon going in the bedroom. So I am trying to stay as cool as possible in a lofted flat where heat rises and has nowhere to go.
Have you got a bucket of ice maybe to dip your toes
Well,
in?
hang on.
I'm
You
just trying
said
to think what
earlier
else you could do.
you were trying to cool down by having a kind of an ice lolly.
Ice lolly.
I
Yeah.
went a bit more budget because I had a little like coloured freeze pop. You know those kind of those coloured ices. You just can't beat a coloured freeze pop, Kim.
It's like the woo woo of the ice lolly
Oh,
world.
alcoholic freeze pops. Now
I mean,
that's an interesting business idea.
yeah, I think you could do that. Yeah, I had a ice lolly that had been at the back of my freezer for about a year, and it looked a bit weird, but I think it helped. But yeah, really excited that despite the heat, we are a week away from Wimbledon. Chris isn't joining us today because he is in Mallorca on a lovely holiday. So he's getting his, rest and relaxation in before the big event next week. But he'll be back later in the week. So
Hang on, I have tasked him to hunt down Nick Kyrgios to find out what he makes of not getting a Wimbledon singles wildcard.
I think Chris is there on non-tennis business, but we'll see what
It's
he
never
can get up
non-tennis
to.
business.
He lives and breathes it, and he's been living and breathing it. He's not relaxing too much because he's been on us, all the results and news, and obviously the latest news from last night. Well, not the latest, that would be Vondrousova, but last night's news: Serena Williams singles wildcard for Wimbledon. I feel like it's a bit like Keir Starmer. We were sort of expecting him to resign at some point. It's kind of inevitable, and it finally. Within the space of 24 hours, both things have actually happened. Serena's been given that wild card and Keir Starmer's resigned. But I mean, what do you make of the wild card? Do you think it is justified? I feel like reaction's been a bit mixed that, she's only come back and played 2 doubles matches since returning and, she's getting the singles wild card. Um, I mean, I'm just so curious to see what the draw is going to bring on Friday.
I was quite surprised actually by the reaction because it was a lot more polarized, I think, than what I was expecting. I thought it was going to be more unanimous. Can't wait for Serena to return, and of course we have seen that outcry of emotion, but we've also seen some people online, particularly, be like, "What? Why is Serena coming back?" I feel like you can never win, with some audiences. I think it's just great to see Serena back, and I know she was kind of keeping her cards close to her chest at Queens, but there was no way this journey was just going to be about doubles. With singles, I do think it's a brave move. The fact that she's only had 2 doubles matches, no singles matches in a long, long time, given where she is, I think I have to almost commend her for it because she is literally vulnerable to anyone in the draw. I mean, for all we know, she could draw Sabalenka round 1. So I have to commend, I think, the kind of bravery that it takes to come back at 44 years old and go for the singles wildcard. But it doesn't surprise me. I think, the writing was on the wall really with the return. And this is Serena Williams. She's not coming back to just play doubles. Yeah, she's a big character for a big moment. And it doesn't get much bigger, I think, than a singles return at Wimbledon. I mean, it is really this kind of it's
pinnacle.
It's blockbuster. It's Hollywood.
Yeah, and she is the shining star of the grass courts. And I think, she spoke about wanting her children to see her play, and obviously they're a bit older now, so they're, can come along, and, she's not one to kind of just sit back and have the afternoon tea and sit in the royal box. She wants to be on the court. And
do you think they were holding the wild card for her? Because we had the wild cards come out in kind of drips and drabs, and I think the final ones left there was one slot in the women's main draw singles, and I know there were a couple slots in the men's doubles. But do you think like they were kind of secretly holding it for its own announcement?
I think it's like all the press, the PR, the comms. It's like the Wimbledon's worst kept secret that there was that one slot remaining and it was going to go to her. But I am so curious to see who she lands in the first round. I do kind of worry that if she does get a top seed, that it actually, everyone's going to be all eyes on it, popcorn match. We're going to be wondering if it's going to be this great encounter, but actually it could just be a really, like a bit of a letdown. It could be awful.
I mean, what would you prefer? Would you like her to play a big name first up to see if Serena's still really got it, or would you like to see her open up against a qualifier or maybe an unseeded player?
Well, you could say qualify, but what if you get a Maya Halinska coming along?
Very true.
Qualifiers can reach Grand Slam finals; they can win them. So, I think someone around the sort of 56 in the world mark would be great.
Very precise.
I don't know who that is at the moment. I might look that up in a minute. Because I think maybe a couple of matches to play yourself in, to get over, get that match practice, and then big name round 3 would be great. So then we get like a couple of matches. She's got time to kind of get into it. We're not disappointed too early on. The sort of fanfare can build and build. But I mean, it's the luck of the draw, literally. So, all eyes will be on Friday morning.
I would love to see her face off against Naomi Osaka. Ooh. I think they have got such a great rivalry. They've got they've had some great matches in the past. I think their matches have always been very dramatic. And I think those are matches that are made for the big moments. And I think you look at some of the matchups on the tour, you're kind of looking, I think, for the popcorn matches in the ladies' rounds. We always kind of wonder about with Roland Garros, like, why don't they put matches in the night session? So I would love to see a big blockbuster popcorn match that is going to get everyone seated on a weekday early evening. And yeah, I would love to see Serena versus Osaka.
I mean, she could well get a Brit because quite a few wildcard Brits out.
Raducanu?
So, we'll have she could go, well, get Emma Raducanu.
Would you like to see that?
I would love to see that. Maybe not round one, but I would. I mean, that maybe Emma's. Emma. I'd go with Emma to win that. Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Well, famous last words. But yeah, plenty to come. We'll cover that more on Friday when we do our draw preview episode for the championship. So we will be analysing what we think exactly is going to happen when we know who she will be facing.
All I will say, lastly, I did enjoy 50 minutes after the Serena singles announcement. There was a little bit of a smaller announcement that Jodie Burrage was withdrawn from Wimbledon qualifying, and her wild card went to the next lowest ranked player, and it was Harmony Tan. And it got me thinking, Harmony Tan, she would love another crack at Serena.
Yeah, for all those in the know,
or maybe Serena would love another crack at Harmony Tan.
Yeah, just that big moment against her a couple of years ago. That was a dramatic late night, wasn't it, on Centre Court? But I mean, what else has caught your attention this last week, Joel? We'll be covering the Vondrousova news later, of course. But there feels like there's been so much happening on court and off court. There's just endless fun and news. It's almost the pinnacle of our season, isn't it? Everything happening. You've been at Queen's a lot, so it's been exciting. Yes. But has there been anything else that's caught your eye?
Well, there has been, and it has been the first challenger in Ireland in over 20 years at the Elm Park Golf and Sports Club. I always love seeing grass court events pop up in new and interesting locations. I think there's also been a similar level event in Africa just kind of started, which the courts there look immaculate, and it amazes me. But I have been very interested in the Dublin Challenger 75 because Grigor Dimitrov played it. He reached the quarterfinals, lost to Kyrian Jacquet. And I mean, he is going to be at Wimbledon. He was given a wild card into the main draw. But yeah, I mean, great for the locals to see a Grigor Dimitrov. But to me, also a bit of a reminder of how brutal tennis can be. I mean, he was impressing and was quoted as saying, tennis is ruthless, but I feel I left my mark. To think a year ago, he was very close to taking out Yannick Sinner at Wimbledon, and he's now playing a Dublin Challenger 75, Kim.
I'm loving this Dublinger.
Dublin. It's so hard.
I think it's great. I think Ireland needs more tennis. It's the first challenger in Ireland in over 20 years. I mean, if they keep this up, I would pop over to Dublin in June for a bit of grass court action.
Do you think he's a big Guinness drinker? Is that was there an ulterior motive for Grigor Dimitrov to play?
Could well have been. He's thinking, well, I'm at the last stages
it would have
of my
convinced
career.
me, I think.
Where else can I go? But get a bit of live music in Temple Bar. Plenty of other things to enjoy in Dublin. So, nice one, Grigor. And nice that they've got a challenger event over in Ireland. I was there last week, actually, but not in Dublin, exploring the rest of the country. But, I mean, my update, I suppose, is I saw the lovely photos from Casper Ruud's wedding. His wife, Maria, and him celebrated their wedding in Mallorca. Don't think Chris was invited. He just goes to Mallorca a lot. But yeah, they
so much
the
happening
photos.
in Mallorca at the moment.
I know, it's the place to be. I wondered if, maybe they could have got married at the Rafa Academy, because I think obviously Casper's a big fan, but yeah, obviously somewhere else on the island. But nice photos from them. And also, I was thinking a bit about Chris today because Yelena Ostapenko's merchandise has launched today.
Oh, is this a collab with Riga Nails?
Check out her Instagram because she's got a new merch line, which Chris is very excited about. Maybe we'll see him sporting
interesting.
A jumper. Well, maybe not in this heat wave, but at some point on the podcast.
Yeah, looks quite interesting.
It's quite tidy.
Yeah. Maybe we'll see it debut at Wimbledon. But I just on Casper Ruud, I feel like I love how grass court season equals let's get married.
Get married, go on holiday.
Yeah, I think I wondered if he was going to sort of stay on from the wedding and play the grass court event in Mallorca, but I don't think he's doing that. I think he's down to play Hurlingham, some exhibitions before Wimbledon. So yeah, maybe though, I think maybe he's learnt his lesson of not playing. Don't play the lead up tournament before the Grand Slam where Mallorca is, because he did that in Geneva, and I honestly think that ruined his chances for Roland Garros.
He did struggle a lot, and obviously heat at Roland Garros. If we're going to get heat continuing here as well, he doesn't want to overdo it, but you must just think he's following the heat waves at the moment. Must be what they all think, but it's the climate, isn't it? But let's have a look at what happened on tour last week. Let's start with Queens. Obviously, Joel, you were there, so you saw Francisco Cerundolo win the title with his best title of his career, beating Tommy Paul in 3 sets in the final. Came from a set and a breakdown to get the win. And great stuff was from Cerundolo. I have to say, at the start of the week, I wouldn't have put him down as the champion. But do you think it was obviously a well-deserved title given his prowess over the course of the week?
Yeah, I mean, he had a lot of battles, a lot of 3-set battles. I mean, the final was so finely balanced. I mean, 3 hours and 4 minutes. It was the longest Queen's final ever to be played. But he's got a great game, I think, for the grass. He hits very big off his ground strokes. His forehand, when he wants to turn it on, it can be really devastating. And he's a South American, I think, who's very deadly on the grass. I mean, he won Eastbourne a few years ago, also against Tommy Paul, and again, same result here. So I think he is definitely one to watch. And the Cerundolo brothers, they're having a bit of a moment on the tour with Juan Manuel defeating Sinner in Roland Garros and now here. So I think he's definitely playing some good tennis. The only thing I would say that I think holds him back is his serve. Like, I was just kind of comparing the two serves between Cerundolo and Paul, and Cerundolo, I feel like he needs to add some speed to his first serve. I felt like even when he was ahead, it was always kind of vulnerable to be broken. I think Tommy Paul was in a lot of the Cerundolo service games, and perhaps could have done a little bit better with forcing some break point opportunities. But I mean, Cerundolo played fantastic. He's now got Nicolas Massu as well in his coaching team, and they've had a great first week. So great result for him.
Yeah, it's a bit of a shame that Tommy Paul, I mean, he doesn't have the greatest record now against Cerundolo. He's lost the last four. Yeah, and especially, and like you said, at Eastbourne as well, another grass court final. But, because he had that, he won the first set, and he also could have broken back later on in the third set. Cerundolo did really well to kind of hold after kind of, squandering that 40-love lead. So, yeah, it wasn't quite to be for Tommy, but I think Cerundolo, you don't think of South Americans typically as being grass courters, but maybe could be a bit of a dark horse. But having said that, he did struggle a bit against Arthur Ferry, British player. He was a breakdown in that last set. He was a set and a breakdown against Nakashima. So he really had to fight his way to that title.
He did. And that's what I mean. Like, it felt like with his service games, he needs to be maybe a little bit tighter. But I mean, this is still a great result, and I do wonder if the heat wave does continue, I feel like it's going to favour the South American cohort of players. So we'll have to see how he gets on. But I was a little bit saddened for Tommy Paul, because I was really excited to ask him in press about. Do you remember last year
the truck?
His truck, and it got repossessed because he missed a payment, and I was excited to ask him whether his prize money was going to get put towards that, but sadly it wasn't the case. But I still think, great run from him. He just, again, on the serve, like, he does hit a big serve. He was hitting like 135 plus. He needs to land more of them in, though, more consistently. If he can do that, he's got a great game. He can be very attacking. He can stay in the point. He's got delightful touches as well. He's definitely in good shape as well for Wimbledon.
He also got involved in fixing a panel at the back of the court. So I like the humility of just getting stuck in and fixing the court.
Yes. I honestly wondered if we were going to have like a 5-minute break and, the engineers were going to come on. But he literally just picked up the panel and put it back in place like a jigsaw puzzle. And we just got on with it. It was very, very
nice.
Cool.
Well done. I hope he has got his truck back. You can ask him in Wimbledon press, hopefully. But let's have a look at the other big grass court for the men. out in Halle, of course. Now, another American, well, two Americans contested this one, but it was Frances Tiafoe that got the better of Taylor Fritz on the Halle grass yesterday, 6-4, 6-4. Bizarrely, Joel, this TFO is the very first American to win the Halle event since it started in 1993, which kind of surprised me because I would have thought, like Andy Roddick or someone like good on the grass would have picked up a title there. But of course, he always used to play Queens, didn't he? Whereas actually now we're finding probably the higher ranked players are actually going to Halle rather than Queens. So a bit of a shift there. But TFO, getting his biggest title of his career, 500 event. So both him and Cerundolo kind of getting their first 500 crowns in the same week. What was it that TFO did so well to pick up this title across the course of the week, do you think?
I think this draw was stacked, and TFO, I think for me, we know he's got great grass court prowess. I remember being at Wimbledon for his match where he came so close to beating Carlos Alcaraz a few years ago. So we know his prowess. I think for me, what he's really struggled with is consistency across the week. And in this event, I mean, he beat 3 top 10 players to win the title. And arguably, there were other Americans I was looking at more, thinking, were they going to win the title with Fritz and Shelton? And the head-to-head as well, TFO Fritz is very one-sided in Fritz's favour. So I think for me, I was impressed kind of mentally with how he was just able to kind of keep it consistent, and he didn't let, I think, maybe the kind of the moment and the opponent and all the history that's gone on there get to him. I think we've seen with Tiafoe, like at the French Open, he was one of the kind of the only seeds left later in the tournament, and there was that kind of quote from him about him losing to kind of lower ranked like no name unknown players. So I think there's been a mental shift there, and great week for him, because this was a tough tournament, and you sort of forget with TFO, like he's not won a tournament above a 250 level. So perhaps it just shows, I think, the kind of, the belief that maybe he has in his game. And I think just naturally on a grass court, he's a big server like all the Americans, but I think he does a little bit more in return than the others. So I think that certainly helps.
Yeah, he has reached 4 finals before above 250 level, but had lost all of them. So and especially combined with the sort of quite one-sided head-to-head with Taylor Fritz, you sort of thought, oh, Fritz is gonna clear up here, especially because Fritz had come in having beaten Zverev, beaten Shelton. So I think going into it, I expected Fritz to get the win, but great for TFO. I mean, quarters in Stuttgart, winner in Halle. He's got to go in as one of the rest of the pack more likely to get to the latter stages at Wimbledon.
I honestly think this is possibly one of the biggest chances for an American male Grand Slam champion in a long time. Andy Roddick was the last to do that in 2003 at the US Open, and to think that Shelton, Fritz, Paul, Tiafoe are all up and running, playing very, very well, it makes me think it is a possibility. I think it might even come down to, they all have big serves, and I think, that takes care of itself. But I think the return for a lot of these Americans is where it's going to count. I think you can't just win with a big serve and a big forehand. You're going to need to press your opponent on their service game as well. And I think TFO has the tools to do that more than some of the other players. I mean, it's something we always talk about with Taylor Fritz. And again, it might be something that holds him back, similar with Ben Shelton. That, I think, is where they're going to need to make new inroads to be real Grand Slam contenders come Wimbledon. But I do think it is possible.
Yeah, no, for sure. You've got to think they've got a bit of energy behind them as a bunch coming in without Alcaraz, of course. And, possibilities perhaps, but we did have Sasha Zverev as the top seed in Halle. He obviously coming in Roland Garros champion, but he had a bit of an unfortunate episode in his semi-final with Taylor Fritz, where his blood glucose sensor actually gave him an incorrect reading. So he put far too much insulin in, and then had to he said consume about 350 grams of sugar to balance it out, which is a bit like drinking 3.5 liters of Coke, he said during a match. So, I mean,
sounds like my lunchtime routine, Kim.
Yeah, I was going to say you're normally on the the Cokes and whatever you, but many more ice pops to get through to reach that level. But I mean, I'm just glad this didn't happen in the Roland Garros final for his sake. I mean, it's awful having to deal with that and then not be able to trust your sensor. So hopefully that won't happen again. But it does just show you what he is having to deal with and manage like constantly, especially playing sport at an elite level. So yes, obviously that was a bit of a factor in his loss to Taylor Fritz. I think 7-5 in the third, so a close one. But let's also have a look, Joel, at what happened in Germany, in Berlin on the WTA Tour, because as you said earlier, they've only just actually finished that tournament today on the doubles side of things. Awful rainstorm meant that they had to close the ground, send everyone home, and come back.
Did you see the photos? Did you see the photos from the event? Listeners, if you've not seen the photos of how bad the weather was in Berlin, do search these out, because it was like, it's something out of like a horror film.
Yeah, it's just flooding, and it just looks
sad, deflated tennis balls as well, flooded. Yeah.
I know, very wet and soggy. But Linda Noskova, she won the singles against JPEG in the final. So great win for Noskova. She was then affected by this delay and had to come back today to play a doubles semi-final and a doubles final, but she won them both. So she ended up with both the singles and the doubles titles. And just it took her a bit longer than she thought it would. But we'll focus on the singles here, because she got the job done against Pegula in 3 sets, just under 2 hours. And I mean, she will now be in the top 10, Joel, making her top 10 debut, and will surpass Muchova as the new Czech number 1. Is she peaking just the right time before Wimbledon? Because she did reach the 4th round last year, and I think she could be quite dangerous with her grass court form.
Yeah, I agree. I think this has definitely been timed for her. I think timing is it's been timed to perfection, and maybe a little bit surprising. I mean, we talk about Berlin again on the women's side of things. There's a very stacked draw. We'll get on to Sabalenka in a sec, but for her to kind of come through this field and win against Pegula, who was showing great form in the tournament. Yeah, she is definitely going to be one to watch, I think, at Wimbledon. We always talk about the Czech players, I think, and their kind of how akin they are to playing on the grass. But yeah, she's going to be a very tough customer, I think, at Wimbledon. Who knows where she can go from here? I mean, top 10 debut. I feel like she's been around forever, but she's still only 21 years old, but she's certainly got a lot of experience now. And I do think Wimbledon is where, she can maybe make the, another second week. She reached the Australian Open quarterfinals back in 2024, but I feel like grass is a more natural place for her. And I think she's one of the players where if kind of the top players aren't on their A game, I would put Noskova at the top of the list in terms of who could make them pay.
Yeah, and more informed than I guess Muchova at the moment, because she went out to Keys quite early on, and obviously also lost in the doubles with Serena, who she was playing with. So, but that exciting for her to play with Serena. Alex Ayala had some good wins as well over Raducanu and Svitolina, so could be coming into some nice form ahead of Wimbledon. Also beat Donna Vekic, of course, as well, recent Queen's champion on the ladies' side. But we've got to talk about Sabalenka, don't we? Because she was also bageled again, this time by Jessica Pegula in the 3rd set of their semi-final. So this is kind of, following on from that bagel, she, from Schneider at the French Open in the 3rd set. It's unusual for a world number 1 to kind of be getting bageled with such new frequency. I kind of hope for her sake it doesn't happen again anytime soon, but a bit of an odd one, that one.
I am concerned, I think, for Sabalenka and her performances at the moment. It goes from kind of very competitive to not competitive very, very quickly, and it's just falling away from her in that deciding set. It's very surprising. I mean, I'm perhaps more surprised by the Jessica Pegula result. I sort of thought, the Schneider result, yeah, just a blip, but the fact that it's happened again, it makes me think mentally that there are issues there, and when she's not been able to put out her best tennis, I'm kind of wondering with Wimbledon, like she should be kind of all conquering with her game, very aggressive, should be able to kind of come through. But now with every match, I'm kind of like, are we going to see a Sabalenka meltdown? Like the Sabalenka meltdown has returned for me. I mean, Pegula's been playing great in Berlin, but she should not be losing as a world number one 6-love to two opponents in 2 losses in a row.
Yeah, and does it make you, I wonder, fear that meltdown? So then you put more pressure on yourself to think, I can't let it go tight. I can't go to a third set because I might have one of these meltdowns. And then that starts impacting yourself earlier on. I mean, you could really get in your head about this.
I think it is a hangover from the Schneider match. I wonder if there's something to do with kind of problem solving on the tennis court and just not able to do that and actually going in the opposite direction. She's just giving up. And I know there's not a lot of time between Berlin and Wimbledon, but it's certainly something that she's going to need to rectify. It's still crazy she doesn't have a grass court title. Maybe that was playing on her mind as well. But unfortunate for her. And we want to see her playing her best tennis, but I'm not sure it's quite there at the moment.
So first round against Serena Williams, if it goes to a third set, 6-love to Serena. Is that what's going to happen?
Bagel alert, definitely.
Yeah. Well, let's also catch up on Nottingham because we had that as the WTA 250 last year as well. And I mean, talking about Czech players, to be fair, we've got another one winning here as well. Marie Bouzková, in good form. This is her 4th career title. She got the better of Emma Navarro, who's also having a bit of a resurgence again, I suppose, as well. But Bouzková got the job done in 3 sets, and also will rise to a career high ranking for her of 22. So yeah, another one that's possibly peaking at the right time. One to watch for the big one next week. But yeah, any thoughts on Bouzková's victory? She's another player that's sort of been there and thereabouts for a while, but
yeah, particularly on grass as well. I think she goes actually a little bit more under the radar on grass courts. I think there's maybe a little bit more hype with Noskova, but certainly a very smooth operator and going up to career high of 22, that will help just before the seeding cutoff. So she's certainly a player I think handle with caution. I would say. Tricky. I thought Karolina Pliskova was gonna walk through this field. I thought she played well in Queens. But yeah, Pliskova, I mean, she didn't drop a set the whole tournament. So yeah, she's definitely another player in really good form.
I think Pliskova, though, she's lost to Vekic at Queens and Bouzková here. So she's lost to both champions at least on both of those events. But, we know she's a cracking grass quarter when she's in form as well. But let's take a quick break now. Well, but do join us in the second half where we will have plenty more to discuss, including another Czech player, Marketa Vondrousova's 4-year ban for refusing an anti-doping test last year. Jack Draper and Andy Murray kicking off their coaching partnership at Eastbourne. We'll be delving into that. And we are going to be debating whether Corentin Moutet's Queen's outburst deserved that $40,000 fine. So do not go anywhere. Welcome back to the Tennis Weekly podcast. Let's kick off the second half, as always, with a game, Joel, before we delve into our mailbag and further news. It's just me and you this week, so I can't lose to Chris, which is good. But what have you got for me and our listeners?
So last week I quizzed Chris on youngest female Grand Slam champions. And this week, Kim, I would like to test you on youngest male Grand Slam singles champions. And I was gonna widen the net to there are 15 players who have won their first Grand Slam singles title as a male, 20 years and younger. But I'm actually going to tighten it a little bit. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are 8 male players who have won a Grand Slam singles title before they have reached 20 years old.
Okay. Oh, right.
So there are, and I'll break it down. I'm feeling a bit nice today. I'm going to break it down for you. There are 3 players who did it at 17 years old. There is 1 player who did it at 18 years old. And there are 4 players who did it at 19 years old. So in total, that is 8. And I'm going to set par. I always feel like I have to set par at 50% minimum.
Okay.
So I'm going to say 4 out of 8 to reach par for the courts.
Okay, let's do this. I'm going to start with Rafa Nadal.
Rafa Nadal. And actually, I'm going to say bonus points if you
I think
can
he was
tell
19.
me.
Was he 9? He just had his 19th
And which
birthday.
slam?
Roland Garros, 2025, 2005.
That is correct. Very good. Rafael Nadal, 2005 French Open. Yes, 19 years and 3 days. So that's 1 correct answer.
Carlos Alcaraz, who would have been 18? 19?
That is correct. Very good.
Was he
Carlos
18 or 19?
Alcaraz, 19 years
19.
old. Which Grand Slam?
Oh, what was his first? US Open 2022?
Oh, very good, Kim. Yeah, it was absolutely bang on. 2022 US Open. So that is 2 correct answers. You're halfway to reaching par for the courts. I feel like there are some big famous names still on the table. Who are you going for next?
Boris Becker did it at 17 at Wimbledon in like 86?
85, but very
85,
good. Correct
okay.
answer. 1985 Wimbledon. Boris Becker, 17 years, 228 days. So you've got 1 more name to get par for the courts.
I'm going to go slightly more recent, actually. I think Del Potro was 19, I think, when he won the US Open in 2009.
Going with Juan Martín Del Potro?
Yeah. Yes. I'm sure he was 19.
It's an incorrect answer, Kim.
Why am I thinking he was 19?
It's not correct.
How old was he?
He was
21.
20. He was 20 years old. But
20 in 1 day or something.
Actually, the complete opposite. He was basically 21. 20 years, 356 days old.
I was so sure about that.
So 1 short of par for the courts. Any other names you had in your head?
Stefan Edberg, was he quite young? Oh, Michael Chang, was he 18?
Oh, Kim, you could have given
me the 18-year-old.
You could have given me both those answers, and they would have been correct. Stefan Edberg was 19 when he won the Australian Open in 1985, and Michael Chang.
Leighton Hewitt.
Michael Chang was the youngest ever Grand Slam male singles champion. 1989 French Open, 17 years, 110 days. There are a couple of names left. Leighton Hewitt, incorrect, 20 years old.
Okay. Roddick?
No.
No, he was a bit older. I know Federer wasn't. Did Djokovic win at 19?
No,
he was a bit older.
So, Chang, Becker, Nadal, Alcaraz, Edberg, Mats Wilander.
Oh, Wilander. Yeah.
Bjorn Borg.
Oh, yeah.
And there is an American.
McEnroe?
Nope.
No. Agassi or Sampras?
Pete Sampras, 1990 US Open. So there you go.
Oh, I think Chris would, if he was here, say that's classic me going for the slightly rogue answer before you've gone for the ones that are more obvious.
I forget. I mean, I feel like this is really old now, but Roger Federer didn't win his first Grand Slam title until he was 21 years old.
It's ancient.
333 days, yeah.
Yeah, but I know. Wimbledon 2003, yeah. But no, thanks, Joel. I have learnt a lot there. And listeners, let let me know how you got on. Did you also say Del Potro erroneously at all, perhaps? But yeah, thank you very much. Let's dig into the mailbag now, where Philip has got in touch with us on email to ask us about Moutet's fine from Queen's. I think a lot of our listeners may have seen this. Because Corentin Moutet was fined $40,000 after repeatedly swearing during a live BBC Encore interview at Queen's, which effectively wiped out almost all the prize money he earned at the event. Moutet says he was just joking and didn't mean to offend anyone, but he's clearly been reckless, that says Phil. So did the ATP's punishment fit the offence, or is a fine that large for bad language on live TV a bit excessive? Thanks, Philip, for getting in touch. I think that's a really good question. This was certainly doing the rounds on social media. And yeah, I mean, I understand where Moutet's coming from. But I suppose when you're on the BBC before the watershed, there are repercussions, aren't there, Joel?
I mean, what was he expecting to happen? I personally think this fine is warranted. He swore
7 times it was overall.
He swore multiple times. The presenter on court asked him not to swear. He continued to swear. I mean, what was he expecting to happen? And I know he wrote on the camera afterwards that he thought he was just joking about, but I don't think anyone was particularly laughing. So I actually think like this is fair enough, and we've seen his antics before. Like, they can be funny, they can be entertaining, the crowd can love them, but I think this crossed the line for me.
I think also with this, like, you do need to set a precedent, because we don't see it very often, and you do need to sort of make that like quite well known that you cannot do this. It's not professional. It's not a good look. There are kids watching, kids in the audience. You know, it's a state broadcast. It's the BBC, for crying out loud. Like, you cannot just do that and sort of belittle the interview and everyone watching. So yeah, I do feel that it's fair. I think you do have to be harsh with these penalties. Like we had.
Do you think it's too much?
French Open. I mean, what was his prize money? £32,000.
It basically wiped out his prize money. Yeah,
he was left with about £2,000, almost 2-3 grand of prize money after. I mean, we were talking about the French Open with Vallejo's comments, and what was the percentage of that? Was it about 50% of his prize money was taken away? So I guess as a proportionate amount, maybe it could have been slightly less, but then you've got to hit it where it hurts to change people's behavior.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think he's gone away with some things for too long, and hopefully, it's a painful lesson, but hopefully he kind of realizes it. I just almost think like he's now at this point where he feels the need to maintain this image that he's a bit of a joker, he's a bit of a clown on the tennis court. But I get that, but it doesn't necessarily need to. And I love him for that. I think he's very entertaining, to watch. But I don't think it needed to transpire into swearing in an interview. Just came out of nowhere. Like, there was no need for it.
I said this with Vallejo, but if you were to do this at your day job, in a meeting with someone senior, with a lot of people watching, like, you would be fired most likely, or get a severe warning. You would be punished quite significantly. So why should he be doing this in his day job? When he's supposed to be, these people are role models for a lot of people, and that's not how a role model should behave. So I think, Philip, the answer is we do think that it kind of, the fine does fit the crime more or less. So the listeners, let us know what you think.
I'm just wondering now if Moutet gets a top seed at Wimbledon and inevitably gets a show court, would have to get maybe a show court booking. They would definitely not be coming to him for press.
No, I think, or what he could do is some kind of, not joke, but because his last joke failed, but he could just come out with like masking tape over his mouth to stop him from actually saying anything.
I would not be surprised if that happens, but I think for me, he needs to stop with the jokes, or keep the jokes to the tennis court.
Yeah. Well, jokes aside, we've got some very serious news now to talk about, which is the fact that Marketa Vondrousova has been banned for 4 years for refusing an anti-doping test last year. So this news has broken today. Top story on kind of BBC Sport, for example. Big news. Obviously, former Wimbledon champion from just a couple of years ago. And we spoke about what actually happened on the podcast a few months ago. She denied entry to a doping officer at her home who came in the evening in December 2025. And as a result, that is against the rules. You have to, accept the test unless you've got real compelling justification for refusing. And the tribunal that's taken place has said there was no compelling justification for her to refuse the test, and all of the rationale that she gave, which was that she feared for her safety when the officer kind of came to her house. This tribunal's basically had none of that. And the fine is 4 years, so she will be banned until the 21st of June 2030. Unless she appeals to the Court of Arbitration and they overrule it. But yeah, I mean, when this news broke, Joel, what was your instant thoughts? 4 years. Do you think that's fair?
I don't think that's fair at all, actually. I think that's a very severe ban for someone who hasn't necessarily got something, we don't know, hasn't got something in their system that is illegal. It sounds like her mental state wasn't in a great place at that time, and I think she made the wrong decision in the moment. But I think there were perhaps emotions at play that led her to kind of that were influencing her judgment, and where she should have probably just accepted, yeah, it was a difficult moment, but this has to happen. Yeah, she took the wrong path. But I think 4 years to me is quite excessive if you compare that to Yannick Sinner, for example, who was proven to have something illegal or prohibited in his system, and he was only given 3 months. So if you compare the two, I think Vondrousova has a right, I think, to feel very hard done by. I mean, if the 4 years plays out, she won't be back on the tour until she's 30 years old, which is a long time. So I think it's quite severe, and I was very surprised with the length when it was announced.
Yeah, and she's come out to sort of say she's obviously like heartbroken, and then the fact that she's never doped, she's never had a positive test, that she was tested 3 days after this incident and it was negative. And I mean, I have to say, I do believe that she was not up to anything dodgy. I mean, I suppose there's no way of 100% knowing that, but I think it's quite a far-fetched, convoluted story to make up.
I mean, 4 years for not taking a test.
One test.
If you were to sum it up in a line, do you think that feels a bit harsh? Or do you think that's fair enough?
I think if she had done this like 3 times in a row, multiple times, was constantly using like different excuses, but just like there should be some kind of allowance for these kinds of scenarios, especially given someone's like mental state.
I think that's for me, I think that's the issue here, is that I think there were influencing factors on why she like refused it. And I think the act of refusing, I can understand how that leads to a ban, because that is an act you have done. But I think there are mitigating factors that led her to kind of refusing. I do think it was the wrong decision, but I think in that moment, I mean, obviously I've never been in these situations, but she didn't feel like it was a safe environment. Having some random person come knocking on your door. I get that it's a part of like being a professional athlete, but yeah, I feel like it just caught her in the wrong moment, and now she's being kind of paid for that, when actually I think we should be a bit more supportive of her not being like throwing the book at her.
I feel like they make setting this as an example in case other people thought, oh, I could try and claim that I, felt vulnerable. And, I'm not saying that she was making this up, but I just wonder if they thought we need to be heavy handed to set the expectation.
It's like,
we can't
doesn't
have
matter
others
why
thinking there's
you
loophole.
refused.
Yeah. Whereas I think there should be mitigating factors taken into account. And also, like, maybe I've been watching too many crime dramas, or maybe she had, but people can fake IDs, they can claim this. If they know that she lives there and they're going to potentially have doping people turning up, like, you could use that as a way to gain entry if you were so minded, criminally minded. I mean, it's possibility. And maybe, if you're not thinking in that particular way, I can understand why you might be quite scared. And I hope she does appeal, because I think 4 years is extremely harsh. A year I could have understood, but 4, that's compared to Yannick Sinner, where a substance was actually found and he negotiated 3 months. It just feels like worlds apart. And I don't think, I know it's not an entirely comparable scenario, but I think unless something has actually been found, you should maybe be given slightly more benefit of the doubt. I know Chris is very passionate about sports doping.
We're going to need to get his opinion, aren't we?
Later in the week. So yeah, listeners, watch out for that. But yeah, I'd love to know what the general consensus is from our listeners, actually. So do let us know on social media, because I think, this one is, it's tricky. I mean, I don't envy the court having to make these decisions, or the judges or the tribunals. But it's ruined her career, really, isn't it? I mean, she's already struggled a lot with injuries, after winning that title. She's currently ranked 122 in the world, but what's she going to do for the next 4 years if she doesn't win the appeal?
Yeah. Well, we'll have to see how the appeal goes. I mean, yeah, I guess it's just it's a hard lesson to take, that it's just a fact of sport and being an athlete that these things can happen, and they can happen at the worst moment in your life, and you still have to accept it. And she didn't accept it, and rightly or wrongly, she's now paying the consequences for the view of refusing to take the test. And yeah, we'll have to see how the appeal goes. I mean, I feel like a few years ago, I think there have been cases where this has happened and it's been, reduced down, I think, to kind of maybe like 12 to 18 months, which maybe is a bit more manageable. But yeah, I still think 4 years, a little bit, bit too much for me.
Yeah. I mean, let's move on, because we have loads of tennis still happening, of course. We've got Wimbledon qualies underway. We've got Eastbourne this week. We have also got Bad Homburg happening, Mallorca. So there's loads of tennis still in action. I mean, Jack Draper was on court today at Eastbourne. He was due to face Nakashima, who pulled out, having got to the semis in Queens last week. So he was facing
Marcus Giron,
who stepped in. Jack Draper got the win, which is great. But obviously, all eyes were kind of on Andy Murray as coach. Yeah, what would you make of the first outing of Andy in action with Jack? Do you think it's so far so good?
Yeah, I mean, I think they would have. I mean, this was almost like a blessing, early birthday present, late birthday present, whatever you want to call it, for Jack to face Marcus Giron today, who they have, has a lot better head to head. Nakashima coming off a really good run in Queens. So I think this is a great start for the Murray Draper partnership. I think for me, what's interesting is Draper effectively is starting again. We know how talented he is, but his body just can't keep up with his talent and what he shows. And we're in this kind of cycle of, he comes back, he shows some spits and spurts, and then he has to go off the tour for a while. We're in this repeat cycle. I think bringing Murray on board, someone who has been there, done that with all his experience, and has been there also with his body. He's been through these momentum shifts where a great player is having to deal with injuries that potentially could force him into quitting tennis. And again, it was interesting to hear Draper talk about those reflections and that honesty that he didn't, he had reservations on if he was going to come back the same. And I think in those moments, there's no better person to have by your side than someone who's been through similar, maybe not similar injuries, but similar circumstances than Andy Murray. So beyond kind of just them being Brits and all the fans wanting to see it happen, I think there's just kind of this natural reason and this bond that they are together, because they're just two fantastic tennis players that sadly have been having to deal with their bodies for the course of their career. And I think Draper can tap into that in terms of how he manages that, and can at the same time produce the best tennis. And who knows, maybe get him to a point where he can be a Grand Slam contender, because I think he has the tennis for it. He just doesn't have the body for it at the moment.
Yeah, I think he said that Andy's already sort of made some biomechanical adjustments to the serve, so he's not using his arm as much, because Draper's had two big arm injuries in his young career so far. So trying to make those technical changes to sort of essentially use the legs more than the arm. As silly as that may sound, those small adjustments can be quite influential. So hopefully sort of psychologically, but also on the sort of physical sense, it's going to be a big help, even just, tweaks here and there. So we'll see how they get on. I mean, Andy Murray was asked about if he would be possibly returning, at age 44 like Serena is, but he said no, he's not missed the sport enough yet. He doesn't even want to get on the court and hit balls unless it's, a bit of the practice court. So sadly, I don't think we'll be seeing him with a wild card in a few years. I
would love for Andy Murray to do the Serena Williams route and return later on in the career. I mean, again, it just shows, I think, how hard it is to just quit and give up tennis. Even Andy Murray's not sick enough of tennis to...
He's still involved.
To still, he's still involved. He's been coaching, had that stint with Novak Djokovic, now with Draper. So, yeah, I would still love him to see him back at Wimbledon with Jamie Murray. But it's just a reminder, I think, of the physical nature of the game and just how far he had to push his body during his career, that he feels like he can no longer do it at 44 years old. I think it's just a sign of the era that he played in and the relentlessness that he had to go through in order just to even compete and get to a Grand Slam final, let alone win one.
Yeah, it's brutal. I mean, we mentioned earlier about the Wimbledon wildcards, but obviously a lot of them have gone to British players, aside from Serena Williams and Maya Hlinska on the women's side. And then on the men's, obviously Dimitrov's got one. And then Stan Wawrinka, they're the only sort of non-Brits who got wildcards. Does mean that Nick Kyrgios hasn't got one. Gael Monfils hasn't got one. So we won't be seeing him. And some fans were saying Dan Evans should have perhaps got one, given it's his last Wimbledon. He got one into qualifying. Well, no, sorry, he didn't need one for qualifying, but he's in qualifying and he won today. Yes. But yeah, a bit of an oversight there. I think I don't mind so much about Kyrgios or even Monfils. I can understand that, but I would have gone for Evans, I have to say. I can't understand this. I've been speaking to a lot of my friends, even just general fans, who just can't understand why Dan Evans didn't get a main draw wildcard, given his commitment to British tennis, given his commitment also to Andy Murray when he forgo those points in to defend his crown in Washington, to play with him. He has put his body on the line for British tennis for a long, long time. So I think this is a bit of a slap in the face, really, that he didn't get a main draw wildcard. He said he won today, and he said he's not motivated by some sort of revenge mission of not getting one. But I do hope that we get to see him one last time in the main draw on the main site, because for him to go out in qualifying, I think would be a bit of a travesty given the career that he has had. So I was a bit disappointed by that. Yeah, I think I mean, I wonder if it's just a ongoing fallout from, was that the cocaine incident? He took some recreational drugs way
Mm.
back. I
I
mean,
mean,
that's
that's a
kind of
long time
almost
ago.
long forgotten, I know, but I don't know. It
Mm.
could be something, someone deciding the wild cards just thought about that. But yeah, let's see. Hopefully he can get through. But we've got Eastbourne happening as well, where Jack Jones was in action earlier today. He got the win over Carabelli. We've got men and women at Eastbourne. Of course, Taylor Fritz is the top seed in Eastbourne. Fran Cerundolo is also due to be there. And Fonseca. Nakashima was there, has pulled out. I wouldn't be surprised if we get a few more withdrawals imminently, because it's,
I mean, I
quite
don't
a
think,
lot, isn't
Kim,
it?
I'm telling you now, I've
Taylor
told our
Fritz.
listeners on Twitter, I don't think Taylor Fritz should be playing
Yeah.
Eastbourne. He's had good grass form. We've
He's
seen
won this title a lot, isn't he?
he's
Already.
he's the king of Eastbourne, but I think he needs to put the crown down for this year if he's got serious hopes for Wimbledon, because I just don't think he needs to play it. And if you look at what happened to Casper Ruud in Geneva
Yeah.
and Roland Garros, I think he should learn from that and not play it. But we will see. I don't think he's dropped out just yet. I think, he's still in the main draw, but yeah, I don't think he should be playing it.
Yeah. Paulini is the top seed on the women's, Madison Keys second seed. So yeah, a host of Brits obviously in action there as well. Ostapenko with her new outfits, perhaps as well. Her new range, she'll be sporting that. Bad Homburg Swiatek is the top seed. Ondriva, recent French Open champ, is there. Svitolina Muchova. So Venus Williams against a qualifier also in action. And I think Katie Boulter's playing in Bad Homburg, so she's not in
chasing the ranking points, Kim.
Yeah,
chasing the ranking points.
Of course, it is a 500 as opposed to a 250. So hopefully she can have a good week there. And then last but not least, Mallorca. Darderi is the top seed. Davidovich Fokina the second seed. Tiafoe is the third seed, but again, wouldn't be surprised if he skipped that one still. But I guess, got some time to see. Yeah. Moutet is also due to be there. So, well, they'll have to be watching his mouth.
Yeah, we'll need to try and hunt him down at Wimbledon to get his view on. It's fine, but we're going to wrap up our second grass tour catch up of the season here at Tennis Weekly HQ. We hope you've enjoyed the ride with us. Remember to subscribe so you don't miss a moment from the grass court season. We will be doing daily episodes for Wimbledon. We will also be on the grounds, going behind the scenes, getting player reactions and insights from press conferences. So do join us for that. That all kicks off with our Wimbledon draw reaction episode, which will be on Friday. Not one to miss. We'll be making some predictions. I'm sure there'll be some bold predictions. I'm sure there'll be some terrible predictions as well. So do look out for that one. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and all your favorite podcasting platforms out there.
So if you love what you're hearing, be sure to leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube. You can also stay connected with us on social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, X, Threads, the full works, at Tennis Weekly Pod. So do get in touch with us. And if you'd like to also get in touch via email, we are on tennisweeklypod@gmail.com, or you can visit our website, tennisweekly.co.uk. So if you've got any questions for future mailbags, do drop us a line.
And we will be back on Friday for our Wimbledon draw reaction episode. The whole gang will be back, myself, Chris and Kim. But for now, it's goodbye from Kim.
Goodbye, and stay cool, Joel. Stay cool.
Stay cool. Stay cool. And it's goodbye from me. Thanks for listening. I will catch you next time on Tennis Weekly.